Welcome to Wildflower Books. My name is Meg. Today I wanted to talk about 12 books I read in 2024 that have stuck with me. So ones that I'm still thinking about or had an overall positive impact on me. I enjoyed them. There were some that had an impact that I did not enjoy, and we will not be talking about those today. To kick things off, we'll start with The Ascent by Adam Plantinga. This is a thriller that borders a little on horror at some points, and it focuses on our ex-Detroit street cop, Kurt Argento. He's wrongfully thrown into a high-security prison over a holiday weekend in the state of Missouri. Now, at the same time, the governor of Missouri's daughter, Julie, is also visiting the prison for a tour. The governor, has insisted that Julie take 2 state trooper guards with her. It's probably a good thing, as when they arrive, there is a security failure, and everyone in the prison is stuck inside while the prisoners are free to kind of roam with the guards, visitors, etc. So we assemble this sort of cast of characters. We have Julie, we have Kurt, we have Julie's state trooper guards, 2 prison guards, an older one and a younger one. I really like their dynamic. They're quite funny, as funny as they can be in a book like this. We have the nurse. There's a prison nurse that joins their ragtag group. And for a time, we have the chaplain. Now, I don't say that because he dies off. He only joins them through their journey for a little while. And their journey is through the 6 levels of this prison. These are the most violent offenders in the state at this prison. And the offenders get worse and worse the higher up they go. The goal is to reach the roof, and that is the story. You can see the cover sort of shows that. It's gruesome. There are some parts of this book that really were gross, gory, and I don't consider myself squeamish. I don't really look for trigger warnings or things like that when I'm reading, but I would recommend with any of these books, if you're a person that needs a trigger warning, please just look into them. I can't really provide that for you. I'll pick up anything and regret it later. So highly recommend if you can handle it. This was really, I don't know, heart pumping. It was sad. It was tragic. It was awesome. So I just really overall enjoyed it. I could totally see this as a movie or even a TV adaptation. I think Universal might be adapting it. And I could totally see as our main character like Idris Elba, Jason Statham, somebody like that. Next up is the popular Project Hail Mary. This is a science fiction novel about Ryland Grace. He's our main character, and we come into this novel with Ryland as he is waking up from a coma, and he doesn't know where he is. All he knows is that for company, he has 2 deceased crewmates. As he's kind of coming to term and getting his memory and realizing where he is, which is space, and realizing why he's there, which is to save the world, we come to terms as he's coming to terms with these facts, and we learn why he's there and how he came to be there through flashbacks. And like I said, his mission is to save the earth, and he's there to do it all alone now that his crew is gone, but maybe not totally alone. And I don't want to give too much away because I do think that there are some stunning surprises as you're reading this. I would also highly recommend listening to it. I like to read and listen if I have an audiobook and I have the opportunity to be reading the physical copy while listening. I think that's the best way to really, really read a book, to experience it in all fashions. So I think without going too much into detail, you'll understand if you listen to the audio why it's important. I think this book has a lot of heart and it was really moving. Next up is Pandora's Jar by Natalie Hayes. I don't have a lot to discuss here about plot, as this book is broken up into 10 sections, each one discussing women or a woman from Greek mythology. This is classic Natalie Hayes fashion. It is funny, it's easy to digest, and it's thought-provoking. So she tells these stories in a really relatable way. I think if you like Greek myths, you could pick up any of her delightful books and you would really enjoy them. All right, one thing about me, I love Stephen King, and The Cycle of the Werewolf was no exception for me. This is quite a small little horror book. They do call it a novel. I would call it a novella. Each chapter is a different month throughout one calendar year. There's some artwork in here. We have a young male protagonist in a wheelchair. I quite like that. I think Stephen King writes these young protagonists well. But we are going through the year and all of the full moons in the year. He has said he took some liberty with the dates. There's one that's like Valentine's Day. But what stuck with me the most about this book is how it affected my response to full moons. I love the moon. I've always loved the moon. I think full moons are beautiful and wonderful, whatever. However, this scared me a little bit when it came to the full moons. And I think that is a great test of a horror novel, is can it get under your skin a little bit? And for such a little baby book, I think about this a lot, way more than I thought I would even when I was reading it. And I decided to read this while we were camping. Not a great idea. But yeah, it really stuck with me. I love the artwork and I love the storytelling. So it's just another classic Stephen King. Super happy to have it. Highly recommend. Next up is Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. I think this is quite a popular book, so most people might at least recognize the cover of it if you don't exactly know what it's about. It is set in 1978 Florida, or at least it opens in 1978 Florida. Tallahassee to be specific. And if you're familiar with true crime, you might know that that is the year that Ted Bundy murdered several Florida State University students, female students in a sorority. So this is kind of the retelling of that, the fictional retelling of that through the eyes of the sorority president. And like I said before, it opens in Tallahassee, but we get three unique perspectives here. One of Pam, who is the sorority president, one from a woman connected to the case that tries to help. She kind of has a mysterious vibe at first, but she makes a big impact. And then finally, there's a character called Ruth, and her perspective was the hardest for me to get through. But I do think that books like this that are kind of hard to get through and make you feel something are important to read, even if they're difficult. And this is no exception. I absolutely loved it. It made me cry. Tallahassee is a place that's really close to me personally. I spent a lot of time growing up in Tallahassee. So to hear some of the names and the places was a bit difficult. But again, Ruth was the most difficult perspective to get through. So this book, like I said, is about the murders that Ted Bundy committed in his reign of terror in the 1970s. And the novel does a really clever job of letting you know that that's exactly who this is about, but they never mention him. He's only called the defendant. I just really found it very moving. It was horrifying at times. It was really hard to get through at times, but I think it's important and I absolutely loved it. In at books 5 and 6 are the Emily Wilde books, the first two that are out right now, which is Encyclopedia of Fairies and The Map of the Other Lands. So in book 1, we meet Emily Wilde. She's like a curmudgeonly professor at Cambridge, and her goal is to create an encyclopedia of fairies. Now, she ventures out to do this, and while she's there, she's not great at making friends, but her rival colleague shows up, Wendell. And she's very suspicious of him. She thinks he wants to just steal all of her work, which, I mean, he kind of does. He's not great about that. But he has this unique quality of making friends wherever he goes. He's quite open. He's quite the opposite of Emily. So he really gets under her skin, but he also helps her a lot. So she begrudgingly befriends him, and they grow closer throughout the book. And I absolutely loved this book. Emily Wilde has a dog called Shadow, and as her companion. He was such a favorite of mine. She makes little fairy friends. It was so much more than I expected, and I absolutely fell in love. So I really highly recommend this. I love the Barnes & Noble edition. I think the cover is beautiful. It has both of them have the deckled edges, which I also, I love. I just love that. And then book 2, much the same. Emily is actually back at Cambridge for the beginning part of this book when a mysterious visitor that only she can seem to see keeps coming to her. And while this is happening, there's also a fairy invasion on the campus of Cambridge. So she and Wendell go on a journey into the Alps where he continues to get her into even more trouble in the fairy world, but she has trusty Shadow by her side. And Emily really is a fighter, and she can get through a lot of things. For such a scholar, she really is a tough girl. I cannot wait to read book 3. I am devastated that it's the last one, but I'm so excited for it. So again, fantasy, a bit scholarly, a bit adventure, a bit romance too, actually. And I just absolutely loved them. Next up, I think this is my first full-on romance. This is Love of My Afterlife. Um, Main character Delphi dies. She chokes on her microwave cheeseburger in her apartment. How embarrassing. When she makes it to the afterlife, she is in the waiting room of the afterlife, which just sounds so lame. Like, I've died, I've choked on a burger, and now I'm in a waiting room. But while she's there, she runs into Jonah, and he seems perfect for her. The only problem is that Jonah is not supposed to be there. He was having a dental procedure done and really shouldn't have even ended up in the afterlife. Delphi is devastated. She wants to be able to meet him again. And she works with her afterlife therapist, Merrick, and makes a deal. She gets to go back for 10 days. And if she can find and kiss Jonah, I know it's like very Little Mermaid, then she can stay. That's the deal. Merrick, who is her afterlife therapist, which I think is such a funny term, she is kind of a hopeless romantic. And when she was alive, she loved her romance books and all of that. So this is her opportunity to maybe do something like that for someone in real life. So Delphi goes back, her neighbor resuscitates her, and her journey begins. Now, the thing I like about this book so much is I think it made me realize why I like this kind of story. And by this kind of story, I mean a story where we have a character who is really just sort of floating through life. They're not living, they're just sort of getting through, getting by. And they don't realize what they've been missing until they start to make friends, have different experiences, do things, do real things. And it's so encouraging to me. I think it's so fun to see that. So Delphi is on this mission to find Jonah and kiss him, but really the mission becomes her reason for living. It's not even about Jonah anymore. She just wants to keep having these experiences with these new friends she's made and these new people she's gotten to know and these new hobbies, things she didn't know she would even like, new experiences. And I think that is what really stuck with me more than anything. It is a sweet romance, so there is going to be a happy ending. Like, there might be some spice. I really can't even remember. I'm so sorry. I don't remember. The little twist at the end was really sweet. I could see it coming, but I sort of ruined everything for myself that way. I just sort of see things coming, and it's annoying sometimes. But it's really sweet. I highly recommend, even if you're not a romance person, this was just so unique and such a fun experience that I would really recommend it to anyone. Right, another romance is Morbidly Yours. I saw this on Kindle Unlimited, and I absolutely loved the cover. I'm so glad that I picked it up because of that, because this is such a special book. The author, Ivy Fairbanks, is actually writing another book that comes out in August, and I genuinely cannot wait because this was so special, so much more than I expected from the cover even. Callum is an undertaker who works for the family business, which is undertaking, and he can only take over that family business if he's married before his 35th birthday, which is quickly approaching. Lark is an animator from Texas who's moved to Galway after her husband unexpectedly dies, and she just really wants to start over. She is Callum's new neighbor, and when she learns about his predicament, she appoints herself as his matchmaker, but really the sparks are just flying between Callum and Lark. This was sweet, this was funny, it's a little heartbreaking at moments, but I think it's such a nice depiction of how people can close themselves off after bad experiences, and how the right person is able to really bring them back out into the world. And I loved that about this. Next up, Twilight Falls. This is book 4 of the Shady Hollow series, wherein Shelby Atwater goes over the falls at Twilight Falls, but no body is found, and no animal could survive that fall. So what gives, Shelby Atwater? What happened to you? Vera, Lenore, and Orville are on the case. If you don't know about this series, it is a series of woodland creatures that solve crimes, murders, sometimes not murders. And this is book 4. Like I said before, there are 5 books out now and 2 novellas that are like, one is kind of a Christmassy holiday one. One is like a Halloween-ish one. But I absolutely love these. They sound kind of silly, but the covers got me in the beginning, and then I just fell in love with the writing and the characters and just the idea of all these woodland creatures coming together in a society. So to put a finer point on it, I want to read the author's note, which really explains it a lot better than I could and gives you kind of an idea of what to expect. So also, before I say that, Juno Black is actually two authors, two women who write these together. You would never know. The experience is so cohesive. And whenever I think of two people writing something, I don't know why I think of like this sort of tennis match, ping-ponging back and forth. But these are they're just wonderful. They make me feel good. They make me happy. And they're so unique. I recommend these to like everyone in my real life as well. So the author's note says, "Dear reader, though you may have ventured into this world a time or two before, we nevertheless wish to alert you that Twilight Falls is a work of most fanciful fiction. Therefore, certain events or characters may not fully conform to the rules of dull reality. If a bear and a mouse walking the same aisle of the local grocery store, and indeed the fact that they have a local grocery store, strikes you as improbable, well, you may wish to take a moment to reorient yourself. For when you turn the page, you will enter a place where woodland creatures behave and misbehave in very human ways. When you're ready, we once again welcome you to Shady Hollow." Again, I will gush about these books forever. One, the covers are absolutely stunning. The artwork is lovely. It gives you kind of an idea of what the overall book is going to be about. We have our like two little lovebirds here. And we have the falls and it's just the attention to detail, all of the little creatures and their homes and like the restaurants they eat at. It's so interesting. It's so fun. This is like the joy of reading for me, is experiencing stories like this, discovering characters like this. It's just a really good time. All right, the penultimate book, Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Ninth House and maybe Hellbent. I did read them kind of back to back. After I read this, I needed more. And I will say I thought this was a duology. Nobody told me there were 3 books. So when I read Hellbent, I thought that was going to be the conclusion to our story, and it was not. And that broke me a little bit. In Ninth House, we meet Galaxy, or Alex Stern. She's sort of the most unlikely new member of Yale's freshman class. She's originally from Los Angeles. She's born to a hippie mom. And by the age of 20, she has dropped out of school, joined the bad kids, and is the sole survivor of an unsolved gruesome crime, a murder, several murders. So she's sort of picked up by Yale while she's in the hospital. We don't know why, we don't know what gives, and we slowly find out through her storytelling, through this book, in flashbacks, current, past. I do like those stories because I do think it keeps an edge of mystery there, so you aren't trying to figure out the end so much. You're just caught up in the back and forth. I do like that, and I do like Leigh Bardugo's writing. I've never read any of her. I think she has like some YA stuff. Never read any of it. YA scares me. It's very hit or miss for me. But this, I loved this. I think they would maybe call this new adult, kind of those early 20s. But in this, past the description I gave, the sort of overall, Alex is searching for her mentor. She is haunted by ghosts that only she can see, and we are following her as she's looking for Darlington, like what happened to Darlington. To be fair, Darlington and Dawes, probably my favorite characters, even more so than Alex. Just a good book. Dark, I've heard people describe this as like very dark academia. I didn't think it was that dark, but again, check your trigger warnings, do what you need to do. I will just jump into anything blind. This has Yale secret societies, dark academia, there's magic, there is sorcery, mythical elements, and I think it's quite funny in parts as well. Last up, but certainly not least, is The Elegance of the Hedgehog. This is actually book 2 in the 7 Rue de Grenelle series, but I never would have known. This is also a French translation. Again, probably wouldn't have known if no one told me. It's quite well done. But in this, we follow several characters in an elegant Parisian apartment building, specifically 12-year-old Paloma and the building's concierge, Renee. She's been there for, I think, 27 years. Neither of these two characters are as they seem, though. They're hiding away their talents from the people that they don't expect will appreciate them. So, Paloma has decided to end her life. She is 12 and she's a genius, and she thinks that life is just going to be a slog from here on out. Renee is a cultured autodidact who has an affinity for philosophy and Japanese culture. And these two characters are thrown together when a wealthy Japanese man moves into the building, and he's able to see the true nature in both of them. So this is a story really about finding value in life, friendship, and even hardships. The ending was not what I wanted, and that's okay. I think it just goes to show that life is full of many different experiences, and you don't always get what you want. But I did not love the ending. I loved, though, seeing Paloma's growth and how she changes, and Renee really coming out of her shell more. So I think this is a great book. It was recommended to me when I was discussing grief, and I really appreciated it at that time. I think it's good to read slowly. And it just was really poignant and struck a chord with me. It was what I needed when I needed it. And overall, I think it's a great book. Like, don't think too hard about the ending. But I think this was great. And overall, it made me really happy. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you found something in today's video that struck a chord with you, maybe something that lit up your interest. And I will link all of these below. So if you are interested in picking anything up, you can. Let me know if you've read any of these in the comments, or if there's any that you absolutely have to read after watching this. And I will see you soon in my next video. Thanks.